Hey there. So, I want to talk today about beans, dark beans. And I'm not referring to lima beans or pinto beans or black beans. I want to talk about beings like entities, energies, and being an intuitive person and someone who teaches intuition courses and gives readings to other people, this whole beings entity thing comes up a lot. And one thing I often tell students when I'm teaching my intuition courses is that I rarely ever will tell a client that there is a dark entity in their space or around them or in their home. And I want to do a little video on this because I want to explain why. Why do I not focus on the entities thing? I have my own history with this experience, which I may go into, but I first want to kind of unpack it a little bit. I think the first reason why I rarely ever say to a client that there's a dark being in their space is that it's a pretty disempowering thing to have an intuitive, a psychic say, hey, there's this dark entity that's latched onto you or is in your belly or is in the attic of your home. It's really disempowering, and it kind of, I mean, it's just disempowering because it's not like this is like a physical thing, like you got mold and now we can call the mold specialist and take this out. It's like it's an invisible thing. We don't see these entities necessarily. They can move through walls. They are really hard to feel like we have any agency and any ability to transform the situation. So it's disempowering, which kind of plummets us right into this kind of victim consciousness with this information. And um, and then we're like fixated on trying to get rid of the being. And the way that I like to see this dark being thing is that it's pretty much akin to someone saying to you, "Oh my gosh, you're bleeding, your leg's bleeding. Let's clean up the blood. Let's figure out like how we get rid of all this blood." And you're focused on the blood, but not actually the gaping wound and the piece of wood that's stuck in your leg creating the wound in the first place. And so to me, the focus on entities and energies and dark beings feels like a focus on the symptom and not actually a focus on the root cause. And so, what I've invited for clients a lot of times when they say, hey, I shared with this man that I saw a dark being, I said, well, I wonder what a more empowering kind of focus could be for this person. Like, what might have been the reason that that being was there in the first place and was drawn there in the first place? And so that to me is really, that's like getting beyond the surface and actually going to the potential root cause. And so there might be like, oh, I've been having these kind of negative thoughts lately where I'm stuck in this negative loop. And so a dark being is attracted to that. Or, oh, there's something with my house that I haven't really like cleared up and like claimed the space of this house because I haven't felt really entitled to for whatever reason. So there's often a root cause, and I feel like a more empowering way to view this entity thing is that entities are messengers to point us in the direction of an area that most needs some focus, some attention, some cleanup potentially. And by focusing solely on the entity, I feel like you miss the message. You get distracted by the big, scary, dark energy, and now I got to clear it and clean it. And you miss the true message underneath. And just to give you an example of this, I was, at an intuitive school for about 6 years and grew my intuitive skills massively, and it was an amazing school. But at some point, while I was at the school, I was told that I had a really dark entity that had latched on to me. and that they couldn't help me with it. And they did share with me that part of the reason the entity had latched onto me was I wasn't fully committed to being here. But I think the information just shocked me so much, and I had to leave my intuitive school because of it, that I focused solely on getting rid of the entity. And for 3 years, I was really determined to just clear this dark entity out of my space. And it wasn't until entering a coaching program and having some other coaches and my teacher really reflect to me, essentially, what if this entity, whether it's real or not, is really just a big gift in disguise, that in darkened disguise, that's really here to highlight something inside of you that has yet to be fully loved and integrated and healed. And so that was such an empowering shift for me that really helped me, I feel like, step out of this loop that I had been in my whole life, but also step out of this victim mentality with this entity. And the entity, whether it was there or not in the beginning, became irrelevant. It wasn't even, and it felt like it dissolved in that moment, but it also became irrelevant because I was really now focusing on the heart of the issue, which was, am I willing to choose me, choose this life, and be here? So I share all that to say that I'm really an advocate for not focusing so much on the entity thing. And there are some cases where I think it is actually helpful. But for the most part, maybe 97% of the time, as intuitives, as people who see, let's actually focus on the root. Let's get to the true cause, not the symptom. Let's get to the root of what's actually going on. And sometimes it's much deeper and more profound and more game-changing than we may even know. So that's my 2 cents for today. Thanks so much.